Hi, I'm Grandma, and this is what's happening on the homestead. Today we got an drip irrigation supply in the mail from Drip Depot. We've got some liquid fertilizer that came in the mail. It's an organic one, and I want to try that out in our hose end sprayer and see how that works. And I want to show you the garden, and we also need to clear up some of the debris from felling some trees a couple months ago. So let's go do those things. These are pickling cucumbers, and we actually have a little tiny cucumber, because it's not a pickle until you go through the pickling process. Let's see, here we go. Where did it go? Down in here. Can you see it? There it is. Okay. And then behind these hills of squash, with the sunflower in the middle of them, is our corn. Now I planted on hills because we had such a cold, wet spring that it was taking so long to grow things. And we got our corn in late, but it was still wet and rainy most days, so I didn't want them to drown. So I planted them in hills, and you can see they're doing well. But now we're in the sunny part of our year, and where we don't get much rain during this time of the year. So that's another reason we're getting, or are going to put in the drip irrigation, which I'm going to show you in another part of this video. Here's 2 rows of tomatoes, and I'm going to be putting in a support system with T-posts and using twine to intertwine in and out of them to support them while they grow. I have been pruning them. I know they look a little lopsided right now, but I have been pruning them so they'll straighten up and fly right. Most of these are black cherry, which I started black cherry tomatoes. There we go. I started black cherry tomatoes indoors, and then I had an overabundance of them, so I sold some at the swap meet and planted the majority of the rest of them and gave some away. But we're gonna have plenty of black cherry tomatoes this year, and I'm gonna make some salsa, and that'll be really good. They also have more antioxidants than red tomatoes. We also have a beefsteak, early girl, and sun gold, and a few different heirloom tomatoes. Not sure which ones, because the seed package just said heirloom tomatoes. So we'll see what happens. The peas and beans are a big disappointment this year because the birds ate all the growing points of the beans, and so all we have is the 2 first big leaves, and as you can see, where did it go? There. The birds ate all the growing points. Now when I had them growing up, I put this string across, because I heard on Melissa K. Norris's podcast that if you put a string across up above it, the birds will leave the peas and beans alone, and they'll grow up. And, well, the birds didn't listen. What can I say? Now that we've got the drip irrigation installed, I'm going to put a mulch of straw down to prevent a loss of water and to help hold the soil. Microbes won't be killed by the sunlight, and will help encourage lots of good microbes in the soil, be closer to the surface where they're not getting dried out and killed. And it'll help prevent weeds from coming through, and so there's three things. There's helping prevent moisture loss, helping to prevent weeds, and helping to improve the soil microbes. That's what mulch does. 3-pack punch. I bought this Agro Thrive organic liquid fertilizer so that we could fertilize the garden with it, and one reason I did is because I get tired of having to spread granules, and what I've done before is use this, what I call a hose end sprayer. I've used fish fertilizer with it before, and there's no premixing needed. You just add the liquid and set it to the setting you want. This setting is for 4 ounces per 1 gallon of water. So you use 4 ounces of concentrate per 1 gallon of water, and there's no mixing of it and everything. And it says it's for weeds and insects, but I've only used it for fish fertilizer before, so it should be good to go. I haven't used it on any insecticides or herbicides. So, and there's no premixing needed. I don't have to put it in 1 gallon jugs or 2 gallon containers and sprinkle it on the soil. I can just spray it on the garden, on the soil, or the leaves for foliar feeding. There's no wasted chemical, no measuring. It's easy to go. Let's see how it goes. Just to be sure, I'm going to rinse out the hose end sprayer with some water before I use it to get out any particles of anything that might be left over from. It's been quite a few years since I've used it. So let's turn it on now and see how it works. Well, it seems to leak just a little bit down there. But pretty good spray coming out. And it turns off with a little switch here. And that does really well. Okay. Well, it poured in and it's pretty thick, so I'm hoping that this siphon thing will be able to siphon it up just fine. If this works out, it'll be a big time saver in measuring things into watering cans. Well, unfortunately, it was a bust. It was too thick, so the liquid kept clogging through the filter. I don't know. I could possibly take out the filter, but I'm not sure if that's a good idea. Might try that in a different issue. So, Gilmore, no premixing needed, hose end sprayer, a bust for fertilizing with liquid fertilizer, at least the thick ones. We've now completed the drip tape emitters and watering system, and it seems to be doing just fine now. We got that one drip fixed, and Got strawberries going. We're going to be planting carrots here, and replacing most of this beets with carrots. There we go. That's a better picture. I've got onions. Need to mulch the onions. That's probably why they're not doing so well. Too much variation in temperature and between wetness and dryness. My spinach is bolting, but I'm going to collect the seed for growing for next year. As you can see, if you can see, yep, there, it's dripping. These are our potatoes. Got 2 rows of potatoes. I'm trying not to get my shadow in the picture. And the spaghetti squash and the other squash with it are really taking off. I'm really impressed with how big it is already. We don't have the rings hooked up yet, so they're not. We're going to have to hand water the hills for now, but we didn't have a punch for the 1/4 inch size hose to go in. But we've got all the corn. All the corn is got its drip tape. Getting wet. Supposed to do 1/2 gallon per hour. I think if I had to do it again, I'd get the gallon per hour just to have it done and over with faster. But all in all, we did pretty well. And again, if we had to do it again, we'd, instead of having the drip tape come all the way across the rows, we'd have another header going all the way across. We got this header coming across for adding on to the circle ones for the mounds of squash and cucumbers. Seen some ladybugs in the garden. Just happy to see that. Here's a bee. Yay! Come pollinate our flowers, bee. This is getting ready to have squash. Looks like mostly male flowers right now. Male flowers seem to come out first, and then a little bit the female flowers will grow. Yeah, I don't see any female flowers. They look like they're all male. Okay. So that's the drip tape from Drip Depot. And we're pretty happy with it. It was pretty easy and not too troublesome. So I'd give it a 4.5 stars. Thank you, and see you next time on Grandma's Homestead. Here we are at the patio garden. There's a hummingbird at the lavender. Isn't that wonderful? There it goes. I'll show you, get you close up to see what's going on. I started this lavender from seed last year at our old house in the spring, and planted most of them out at our old house and kept some of them for here. They're doing very well in this pot, but they're getting too big for it, and by next year they'll be way too big. Ooh, look at that. Hello, little hummer. Hello, little hummer. Anyway, we'll move on. Down here is the elderberry. Oh, let me get my shadow out of the way. That I started from scions early spring indoors, and now they're doing well out here, and I'm planning on planting them out in the fall, so that way they'll have rains in the fall to grow well, get more roots going, and then because the summers here are dry, I don't want to have to water and water and water all summer. This is a fuchsia I got. It's called Swing Time. Here's a few more tomatoes. Black cherry again. I still have a few left over. And then we have 3 blueberry plants in here. One of different season ripening. So one's an early season ripening, one's mid-season ripening, one's late season ripening. So we'll have blueberries early, mid, and late season. Here's some lupin I started from seed. There's some more things I started from seed. I started my seeds in these Jiffy peat pellets, and that seems to be a good way to do it. With the tomatoes, I planted them and then they didn't seem to grow, and then I planted more and then all of them grew, and I had a way overabundance. That's why I sold some at the swap meet. Here's a Thuya plicata is what they call it, a western red cedar that I started last. Well, I didn't start it. Nature started it in this pot at our old home. So we brought it with us, and we're going to plant it out someplace, but don't know where just yet. And here's a Daphne that was in the forest area over there. And we're cleaning out the forest area and took it out, and I'm going to be replanting it someplace. Back to the lavender again. We're going to be taking these lavender and putting them in the garden, in front of the garden, as a border in front of the garden, along with other plants and some vining plants. I want to make an arbor on either side of the garden and a gate. That's the update for now. More to come.